Start the tape.
Yes.
Yeah. Start the. I'm showing my age. Start the tape. There is no such thing.
I still say filming. So I mean, same thing.
Yeah. Videoing seems like a weird name.
It is,
if you say you're going to video something, it feels weird.
Yeah.
Our viewers just jumped right in, and listeners just jumped right into the middle of our conversation. Happy New Year, Jeff.
Happy New Year, Drew. It's officially the new year, 2026.
2026. That seems like a very high number. I still remember, quite frankly, when the idea of the millennium was, oh my gosh, you're past the year 2000.
Yeah. The 90s feel like they were 10 years ago. Yeah.
The 90s do feel like they were 10 years ago. I still think of when someone says, oh, that happened in 1970 something, I'm like, oh, so like 30 years ago. Now it's more like 50 something.
I think
years ago.
The kids are saying that like the 1900s now, whenever they're talking about the 90s.
Oh, man.
Or what earlier, yeah. The early 1900s, the late 1900s, yeah.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, if you think about it, we're a quarter of the way through the 21st century now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
A quarter of the way through.
Yeah.
People are going to start talking about the 22nd century pretty soon. And as the future.
So the beginning of some of those movies are going to have to change. It's going to be not going to be 20th century Fox, 21st century Fox,
22nd century
Fox. Yeah.
That's crazy whenever you think about it. But at any rate, we are in the new year, and that brings up a whole fresh slate, right? A whole bunch of no more worries, where everything's just fine.
Everything's fine, except you got to pay off those credit card bills from the holidays. So
you're bumming me out, Jeff. But you're not wrong. So
today we're talking about financial stress or coping with financial stress.
Yeah.
It's December was a stressful part of 2025, and January can be a stressful time in 2026.
It can.
Yeah.
We talk about fresh starts a lot this time of year, the idea of a new opportunity to make a new resolution and things like that. But the reality is that time is linear, and just because the calendar changes doesn't mean that all of your problems magically go away.
That's true. Yeah.
So you're right. I think there are some legitimate concerns that people have when it comes to their finances, and that can manifest in some pretty significant ways, right? I mean,
physical ways. Yeah. They can cause headaches and loss of sleep, memory loss, weakened immune systems, chest pain. So, I mean, actual physical ailments. So if you're experiencing certain things, it could be something that you want to talk to your doctor about, your personal care physician about, but it could also be just, financial stress related.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're not going to sit here and advocate that, hey, if you're having chest pains, it's probably your bank account.
Right.
So please go see your doctor. If you, in all seriousness, you make sure you're checking on your health in the more traditional way first.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you find that a lot of these kinds of symptoms tend to crop up around the time you start thinking about paying your bills,
certain events,
or certain events, then maybe it is something more financially related, and hopefully we can give you some things here today to try to help you deal with those things, right?
Yeah.
You said that you're experiencing some of these things, but some of these people, they turn to the wrong solutions too.
They do. I mean, people get into, drugs and alcohol or overeating or, spending money that they don't need to spend, making their financial stress even worse. Yeah.
So, sort of in line with the idea of, talk to your doctor if you're having health issues, but keep in mind that there may be other things. You got to assess your situation. You got to understand, okay, what is in fact the problem that is causing me these feelings, right? So if, like you said, if it's a constant concern of how am I going to pay the water bill, the sewage bill, the newspaper, it's like all of a sudden
we do have a local newspaper.
All of a sudden people are still paying for the newspaper. your regular everyday bills, your groceries, your rent or mortgage, if just thinking about paying those bills is causing you stress, then that's more of a constant thing that you need to address in terms of an overall budgetary thing.
Yeah. And not paying those bills can be something called decision paralysis, we've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a problem too.
Yeah.
Obviously, because if you decide I'm just going to bury my head in the sand and I'm not going to pay any of my bills, and that might make you feel better physically in the moment.
Yeah.
Just sort of putting it out of your mind and going to watch TV or read a book or take a walk or something. But ultimately, those problems are still going to come back to you when you think about it the next time again.
Yeah, you're just procrastinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And in just like most problems, ignoring it tends to make it worse, not better.
Yep.
And sometimes I think too, when it comes to problems, and again, general problems, but specifically financial problems, they tend to seem bigger than they are until you sort of nail it down. If you take the time to assess and figure out where your issues are and where those problems, the most anxiety is coming from for you, and you can identify it and you can start to build a plan around it, suddenly that monster that's in the closet doesn't seem quite so big.
Yeah, sometimes just having that plan is enough to kind of calm you down a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it go away.
No.
Absolutely not saying that just thinking about it is suddenly going to make it all better.
Right.
You still got to deal with it.
Right.
And we're going to talk about some ways to possibly do that here. But identifying it and assessing it is definitely something you want to do. The other thing is, the other side of it is maybe there's a big financial event that's pending in your life that you are feeling stressed about. Maybe it's an upcoming wedding where your son or your daughter is going to be getting married and you're expected to help financially with that. That sometimes that can be an enormous bill. You could be talking 5 figures, tens, $20,000 sometimes for weddings at times.
Oh yeah. Having a baby, we just had a baby, so I mean,
you did, yes.
So I mean, there's some financial stress with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, things
Your
are
bills,
different.
yeah, bills go up now. Insurance goes up, and you're paying for hospital bills now, and there's definitely some stressors.
So suddenly the money that was going to maybe some of your stress relieving activities is now being reallocated somewhere else.
Yep, to a labor fund.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But we've also learned that having recreation in our lives is something that helps reduce stress and so forth. So if suddenly you're canceling your gym membership because you're now reallocating that money to your son or your daughter, that's a thing too. Now you're losing that bit of recreation that was helping to keep you mentally fit.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, well, especially that, that's your physical health is just as important as your mental health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even beyond babies, if you go to the other extreme and you're thinking about maybe this summer your son or daughter's going off to college, and how are you going to help them pay for that?
Yeah.
So that could be a physical feeling, of oh my gosh, how do I deal with this? So identifying those things is a big deal. They say that the top 5 concepts that spike your anxiety, so it could be retirement, budgeting, college savings, market volatility if you're big into investments and so forth. Could be medical bills.
Okay.
Which kind of goes along with what you were saying about having a baby.
Right.
You said that your wife spent an extra night in the hospital, right?
Yes, and now we're realizing that that tacks on quite a bit of money.
Yeah. And thankfully not because she was in dire need.
Oh, right.
Right. But still, it was that sort of, I'm guessing it was probably sort of that idea of like, hey, while I'm here, I still have.
It was a comfortability thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
So once you've sort of identified the issue, the next step then is, sort of seeing, okay, what is the emotional response that I have to that issue? Is it, are you feeling trapped? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Do you feel more mentally affected? Do you feel physically affected? Because those are things that you want to really pay attention to, because even if the issue is not necessarily medical in the moment, right? We said, obviously if you're feeling a medical issue, you should talk to your doctor. But if you're identifying like, wow, every time I think about this, I get all tensed up and my blood pressure goes up, my heart rate goes up.
Yeah.
Even over time, even though it is a stress-related thing, we have also learned that stress can have long-term effects on a person's health. And so you want to be careful of allowing that to continue for too long, because even if it's not an immediate medical issue, it could become one.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we understand that there are medical, physical effects of this. What can we do about it? Is there, what can we give people an idea of how to try to start dealing with some of this stuff?
Well, we had already said you have to have a plan. You've identified the situation. Now it's time to start a plan.
Yeah. You got to take action.
Got to take action. Right.
So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. One of the things that we were looking at is there's a website called 211.org. 211.org is a really great website that gives all kinds of information and knowledge about budgeting and how to find help when it comes to dealing with financial issues.
Yeah, renters help, homeowner help, food help. If you need to find like a food pantry or need help with your utilities, LIHEAP is another good one that's wrapped into that.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about LIHEAP, because that's specifically a Pennsylvania program.
That is
So if you're in the state of Pennsylvania, that's something but most states have some similar program, right. I would imagine.
I would assume. Yeah. So that's helping you pay for your heating bills in the wintertime. So from December 3rd of 2025, which has already passed, to April 10th of 2026, you can apply for this grant. And they essentially pay your utility company to help keep your heating your heat on.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter what your heating type is, gas or oil or whatever.
Yeah.
They'll give your utility company one lump sum to keep that on for you.
Yeah. So that's definitely something to keep in mind, is that it is not something they're going to cut you a check.
Right. Right.
They're going to ask you for information about your heating source, your utility company, whatever it is. And then as you said, as a lump sum, they will then offer some sort of a grant that they would then pay that utility company on your behalf.
Right.
To help keep the heat going in your home.
Right.
And
you can apply online, by mail, or in person at your county assistance office.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's important, because quite frankly, while we tend to think of everything as being done online these days, not everybody has high-speed internet. Right. Not everybody has access to a PC or a computer or something, or a phone.
Right.
Sometimes doing stuff like that, sometimes doing those kinds of applications and stuff on a phone, even if you do have a data plan and a cell phone, they're not the easiest.
A little cumbersome.
Yeah. If you're doing it on a phone. So there are options to do it either by mail or in person. So that's good to know.
Yeah.
One thing that I saw, and we're obviously strong advocates for saving and paying your bills on time and having a budget, and that's really what we're trying to help teach. However, for those that are dealing with that mental anxiety and that stress, and if it's really sort of eating at you and you just don't know what to do, keep in mind that most states, especially ones where the climate varies widely.
Okay.
All right. And in Pennsylvania, again, specifically, there are laws in place that limit your utility's ability to shut off your heat during certain months.
So if you don't pay your heating bill in January, you're not going to get shut off.
Most likely not.
Okay.
Now, there are exceptions to every rule, and I want to make that very clear.
Sure.
However, they say that gas and electric utilities cannot terminate service for households that are earning below, and these are current guidelines as of 2026, households earning below $3,137 monthly for an individual,
okay,
or $6,500 for a family of four. And that's based on 2024 federal poverty guidelines. So if you are a household of either an individual household or a group up to a family of four earning below those numbers, then they're not allowed to just unilaterally come in and turn off your heat.
Okay,
right.
So there's guidelines. Yeah,
there are guidelines to that.
If you just decide not to pay your bill, that's a little out the door. Yeah,
You're correct.
Right.
Okay. Or if you're making more than that, if you're making a higher income and you're not paying it, then that may not apply to you.
Yeah.
There are, according to this, there are partial exceptions for city gas utilities, which can terminate service for households earning anywhere from $1,882 to $3,137 a month for an individual, or $3,900 to $6,500 for a family of four during part of the winter under certain circumstances. So I would imagine that those circumstances are an unusually warm winter, or if it becomes obvious that the person as an individual or the family does have the money and they're choosing not to pay their bills, and if that goes, there are reasons why they still might. But the reason that I bring it up is mostly just to give people some sense of reassurance that if you legitimately just don't have the money and you're under these income limits,
it could be a little weight off your chest.
It might be a temporary weight off your chest to just realize that they're not going to necessarily freeze you out of your home.
Yeah. Now you will have to pay that back once you have the ability to. Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. And they also recommend that even if you can't pay your bill in full, make a good faith payment.
Sure.
You know, if your bill is $100 and you can only afford $25, don't just pay zero. Pay them $25.
Yeah.
And just say, look, I'm doing the best I can.
Sure, you're making the effort. Right.
And I think most good conscienced human beings will understand that, hey, you know what? At least you're trying.
Yeah. Avoid that decision paralysis.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Don't do anything.
Right.
Right. So there's that. What else was I going to mention? There are a number of ways to get free financial advice that you can look into. So,
or just not even advice, but information in general.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of them is your bank or your credit union, quite frankly. And that's true of our bank. It's true of especially community banks. I mean, I hate to say that the mega banks aren't as willing to listen, but I truly believe that community banks, ones where the people that work at that bank are familiar with your area, familiar with your town, your community, and that you might know people that work there, they're going to be more than willing to try to help you.
Right, right.
You know,
you might be more comfortable talking to them too. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Talk to your family. I mean, I know it's not always easy to talk about finances, but talk to your family members. Maybe they have a little bit of guidance they can give you on what to do if you're in a tight pinch.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, you make a really good point. I think that we tend to think of discussing money as being, I think you used the word taboo earlier today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it kind of is like, it's, you don't talk about what mom or dad make, I think I remember one time whenever I was a kid, I asked my mom what she made, and I thought she was going to
You were
lose
rich.
it.
Right. You're right.
Yeah. Don't you ask me what I make, it's like, but we condition our kids to kind of feel that way about money, that we don't talk about money.
Yeah. Right. And anytime you hear anything about money, it's always positive. It's never negative. In social media or online, it's always positive. I make this much. I do this. I do that. But it's never anything that's bad.
Yeah. Very rarely. And when it is, it's some sort of cataclysmic thing, which also might make us feel like even if we're in some sort of dire financial strait, that it is cataclysmic no matter what.
Right.
That there's no way out.
Right.
And that's not true.
Right.
There's always an opportunity to get better.
Right. And make one little change and that kind of snowballs,
Yeah. Budgeting and financial planning apps are a big thing. And a lot of them, some of them admittedly do have a subscription or a fee attached. Some of them don't.
Yeah.
I know that at AmeriServ, there's a free online budgeting platform that's part of our online banking. If you have our free online banking, you have access to that service.
That's right.
So check with your bank to see if they offer something similar. You might be able to get a budgeting piece of software just as part of your relationship with your financial institution.
Sure. Yeah.
And in that app, I know they have like a sort of a debt reduction calendar, and they talk about snowballing and things like that. And you were going to mention that because you said about George Camel when we had George Camel on the show.
Right. Yeah, he talked about the debt avalanche and debt snowball effect. So, yeah, I mean, if you're in heavy debt and you want to make a change, you can use the debt snowball or debt avalanche effect. The debt snowball is pay your smallest balances first and kind of just move up from there, whereas the avalanche is opposite. Pay your biggest debts off first and then, move down to the smallest.
Yeah.
I think he advocated for the debt snowball effect, so pay your smallest ones off first.
Yeah.
I would have to agree. I mean, it would make me feel good if I'm paying, just pay something off,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that it's that same sort of sense for me as doing a to-do list.
Yeah, having that check off, just makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There have been times when I have literally written down something I've already done onto a to-do list just so that I can check it off.
Yeah, that's fair, right?
Because it feels good to feel like you've made progress.
Yeah, yep.
Right? So I think that snowballing method, but the idea behind that then is to take whatever payment you made and then apply it to your next debt.
Right.
So it's not, hey, I paid this off and
now I have extra cash to blow. Right.
Yeah. It's the idea of take that money and apply it to your next bill, pay it off that much faster.
Yeah.
There are other options out there. There's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They are a U.S. government agency dedicated to making sure that you're treated fairly by banks, by lenders, and other financial institutions. And in support of that mission, they provide numerous articles and guides, news reports on credit cards and debt collection and all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in understanding how some of this stuff works, check their website out. A lot of this really comes down, I think, to some degree to education too. Knowing what your options are and getting someone to help you identify avenues to create a plan to get out of that financial pinch that you may be in that's giving you all this anxiety.
Yeah.
Just like you said, having a plan.
Yeah. So talk to your bank. I mean, they'll be able to help, at least guide you in the right direction.
Yeah.
Who to talk to. Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned before we were talking, libraries are another good resource. We don't think about libraries very often, not only for their books, but their internet access. If you need to apply for a LIHEAP or something like that, go to your local library and use the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an excellent point because they will have access to the internet through the library, and library cards are free. I don't know that I've ever paid for a library card. I've paid fines for returning books late.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, your local library is a fantastic resource. And one that is usually underfunded. Compared to the benefit that they offer their communities.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out. Check out your local library for help with that. What else was I going to say? I mean, honestly, there are even things, we have stuff on our own website.
Financial library. Yeah.
That you maintain and that we work with Bonsai and they provide a lot of great articles and information on just general stuff when it comes to financial education and literacy.
Yeah. In this podcast, maybe we've talked about, budgeting and paying bills and subscriptions and all of that good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. It sounds self-serving, but that really is the core purpose of this podcast. It is financial education and literacy. I mean, we try to do it in a fun way,
right? And
we make jokes and we talk and we kind of do it conversationally, but it really is about educating people about finance because so many people just don't have that education. And that's a big core of how to get out of financial issues and get rid of that financial anxiety is just knowing what your options are sometimes. Yeah. So
you're not alone. Yeah.
You're not alone. You're absolutely right. That whole sense, it's like you said about, feeling like, we don't talk about money. It kind of feels like sometimes in high school when you kind of felt like all of your friends had everything planned out. They all knew exactly what they were going to do with their life and you were the only one that didn't. And everybody felt that way.
Yeah. But everyone is in the same boat as you are, just to a different degree, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, unless you are a billionaire, and there are precious few of them.
Then you have you have a financial stress that is related to that too. I mean, it's, yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And to those of us that are having a difficult time just paying our heating bill, the stress of Elon Musk, dealing with his Tesla stock seems like
a great problem to have, right?
Different worlds, but they you're right. They have their own set of issues as well.
Yeah.
We did do an episode, at least one episode, devoted to the lottery, and as we're recording this, there is one of the national lotteries is up to like 1.7,
fourth highest in history. Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting close to $2 billion again.
Yeah.
And we were kind of sort of talking earlier today about like, oh, what would you do if you hit the lottery? And I think both of us came to a very similar sort of answer, which was not what anybody would think.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. You wouldn't know right away. I wouldn't change too much. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to that financial freedom.
Yeah.
It's not that I want to go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff. It's the idea that I would have enough money in my bank account that no matter what I or my family wanted to do, we could do.
Mm-hmm. Reducing that financial stress.
Reducing the financial stress.
Right.
That's exactly it. It's just not having that blade sort of hanging by a thread over your head all the time.
Yeah.
So if you are feeling that way, please know that you're not by yourself.
Yeah.
You are not the only person that has financial stress, particularly at this time of year when we get through that sort of holiday euphoria and everybody's overspending and overeating and overdoing and over partying. And then all of a sudden the crows come home to roost and suddenly you get that credit card bill in the mail and you're like,
what did I do?
Yeah.
Yeah. How am I gonna pay that?
Yeah. And you mentioned credit cards, so I'm gonna tease this.
Okay.
We're gonna talk credit cards in our next episode. So in the episode that airs later this month in January, we are going to talk credit cards, and we're going to talk about how they work.
Yeah.
Because we've talked the difference before between credit and debit, but we've never really focused and honed in on how do credit cards work.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a really good conversation. So if you are feeling the stress and anxiety and your credit card debt is a little out of control, maybe that's a good episode for you to tune into as well.
Yes, please do.
Yes. And in order to make sure that you don't miss it, you should subscribe to this podcast.
Hit that little bell so you get notified.
Yes.
Yeah. Share it with a friend.
Share it with a friend.
Yeah.
Put it out on social media. Tell your mom and dad about it. Get them to listen. Whatever you need to do. I mean, part of doing this, quite honestly, for us it's not about vanity at getting people to listen. It's about the fact that the more people that listen, the more people we can help.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've gotten some information out of this, whether out of this particular episode or past episodes, please definitely share it. That's why we're here.
Yeah.
So
very well said. Yeah.
Thanks. It's almost like I get paid for this stuff.
Almost, right?
Not enough though. Still got the stress.
It's got the financial stress.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
This podcast focuses on having valuable conversations on various topics related to banking and financial health. The podcast is grounded in having open conversations with professionals and experts with the goal of helping to take some of the mystery out of financial and related topics, as learning about financial products and services can help you make more informed financial decisions. Please keep in mind that the information contained within this podcast and any resources available for download from our website or other resources relating to Bank Chats is not intended and should not be understood or interpreted to be financial advice. The hosts, guests, and production staff of Bank Chats expressly recommend that you seek advice from a trusted financial professional before making financial decisions. The hosts of Bank Chats are not attorneys, accountants, or financial advisors, and the program is simply intended as one source of information. The podcast is not a substitute for a financial professional who is aware of the facts and circumstances of your individual situation. Thank you for listening. Please check out our full library of episodes, which can be found on the AmeriServ.com website. You can also download or stream the podcast from your favorite podcast app.